1988, in the month of May, I was born. It was the first time that students were just starting to sit their GCSE exams. Council tax had just been introduced, and there was argument and debate and protest beginning to kick off about this community charge, as the politicians called it. I was born into a small working class family in Sandwell. My mum's a nurse working at the hospital, and my dad's a jack of all trades. He's worked in factories, construction, demolition, even on scrap wagons. You see, the early years of my life really did go on to shape who I am. From my own earliest memories, I wasn't as smart as everybody else. School thought I had short-term memory loss. They even called my mum and my dad in for a meeting about it. I worked really hard to try and be smart, but I just wasn't. I couldn't even remember my alphabet in the correct order or the months of the year. Age 8 and I don't know the alphabet or the months of the year. Eventually, they asked questions about what was going on at home, thinking there was something wrong at home that was causing me to not remember, or some sort of trauma in my life. And then they told my parents that they thought I had special educational needs. And that was really something that changed my life. I hated that label. I felt like a stupid outcast. Eventually, we moved house, so I moved school. The new school seemed to be so much more supportive of my needs. And so what they would do is they'd give me loads of homework and put me in special reading books, Shorty and Fuzzbuzz at the time. I hated it. I didn't want to be special. I didn't need extra homework. I was a young boy. By now, my parents had separated. The months of alcohol, gambling, drinking, smoking, arguments and money issues, it all just become a bit too much for my family. As a young boy, I'd always vowed that I would never drink. I'd seen that damage, I'd seen the pain, and I'd saw the shame that it brought my family, but in particular my dad. It caused my dad to lose his family. I hated the fact my dad, my hero, had allowed his life to fall apart because of alcohol. As a young boy, I'd always vowed that I'd never drink. I'd seen the pain, the shame, and all the trauma and difficulty that it brought my parents. For my dad, it cost him his family home and the woman he had his children with. For my mum, it cost her another income for the house. For my mum, it cost her so much. But I understood that gambling, the alcohol, that the police, that the drama that the whole of it brought, that had to stop. You see, the disrupted nights, the broken windows, and a drunken man always trying to win your heart back wasn't the environment that children were meant to be raised in. Growing up, I never saw my mum and my dad in love. I didn't see a man and a woman living together, making things work for better or for worse. But I did see my mum working 3 jobs simultaneously, going to this job, going to that job, dropping her children off at childcare that would drop us to school. They would pick us up from school. My mum would collect us from there. She'd bring us back home before she'd get ready and go back to work. Even on Christmas Day, I remember my mum getting a call out because my mum worked so hard to look after us. So hard, too hard. My mum was always tired or asleep because she worked so hard to look after us. But you know what? My mum didn't just stop there with working. She made sure that we did everything. She took me to scouts. She took me to cadets. She took me to karate. She took my sister to dancing. She took me to our childminders. She picked us up from our childminders. She seemed to be able to do absolutely everything to look after us. But the reality of it was that my mum wasn't always there with us when we needed her. My friends and I eventually started our own football team. I remember our first game, we got absolutely thrashed, 9-0. I won a penalty and we managed to miss the penalty. It was traumatic. But you know what, we all learned to work hard. But I think I learned to work hard a little differently to everyone else. I was all about self-improvement, There was nothing that I couldn't do if I would just try hard. And this was my mindset and mentality. I brought this into every area of my life, whether it be my own physique, spending every minute doing press-ups, eating, trying to get big muscles to impress the girls. Eventually it came out in all the teenage ways. I'd be sitting there, fake contact lenses with my green eyes, long hair that eventually got plaited and braided. I was all about me, and I really did begin to love myself. I'll never forget MSN Messenger. Before smartphones came about, before text messages, webcamming and speaking to random girls, age, sex and location, ASL, first thing out my mouth, and all the drama that brought as well. You see, I've made some bad decisions too. I've lost teeth at a friend's house party. I woke up one day and I spat my tooth down a toilet. I walked home with a black eye, well, 2 black eyes, and bruising to everywhere else in my face. And then I had the shame of having to explain the drama that I got myself into to my mum. I remember waking up that day with an open bag of frozen peas on my face. Half the peas were sat in my lap, melting. And I didn't have any clue as to what had happened to me. All I knew was that the same monster that had taken my dad was starting to take me as well. And it scared me. I'd always vowed to never drink. But there were times in my life that I did, but I always hated it. I couldn't drink on my own. I had to have other people there socially to drink. It just wasn't me. I didn't want to have the same issues as my old man. And I always vowed that I never would. Racism, yeah, I've experienced it. Walking home from football training, some older lads didn't like the fact that we were walking down, squared off into me, bumped into my shoulder, making a bit of a scene, saying things that they shouldn't, punched me down to the ground. I'm concussed, I don't remember anything really. And I never remember getting home, seeing my mum's response. She picked up the phone and called my dad and said, "You better sort this out." I'm glad she did. My dad was wiser than to pick a fight with people that he didn't need to fight with. My dad took me to the police station. It's probably the only thing that stopped me from arming myself and going back after these guys. My dad showed me that men don't have to fight and have to resort to violence to deal with problems. We don't have to pick up brawn and muscle to deal with this. There's other means. I didn't knock that door, and my dad didn't knock that door. Old Bill or the cops, they were the ones that knocked the door and did something about that. And it really stuck with me about different ways that I can resolve problems. I'm thankful for my dad. It was weird talking to my dad and to 2 police officers who were all white about the racism that I experienced that night. But it didn't seem to matter. My dad seemed to believe that it was the right thing to do. And something about what happened to me that night, even though I was a victim, really etched in my mind about how you deal with problems. University, well, guess what? I'm a dropout. 2 years of chemistry and physics. It was always about making loads of money anyway and being rich, so I don't have to quite work as hard as my mum. Really, that was my motivation. My heart was never in it. I did it because I never got the grades to become a doctor or a medic that would have made me even more money. And so that was all my mind was about. I was always trying to have some sort of platform that people could acknowledge me, or to be someone that people could respect. My life was pretty empty and hollow, a bit fake. But the funny thing is, I was doing quite well at it. I was a manager at JD on the weekend. At uni, doing chemistry and physics. A bit of money in my pocket. Became the president of the Afro-Caribbean Society. Everything looked like I was doing well on the outside, but inside I was dying. Because it was never lived for me. I was always living for everybody else, for all these other ideas, and it was never about me. The irony of it was I passed every exam that I ever sat because of this hard work ethic. So, truthfully, how did I find God? I haven't got a clue. I wasn't looking for him. He certainly must have been looking for me. I remember the day that I first came to church. I actually went to a gospel concert to laugh at a friend that was singing, thinking it'd be some choir boy concert. I found myself deciding that I was going to come back the next day. Not really sure what to expect. And I came back and there was a drama going on. And every person in this drama just seemed to remind me of me. People pretending to be something that they're not. People conforming to everyone else's standards and expectations in their life. And then the innocent character comes in, who was Jesus, who just didn't seem to fit in with any of the drama. He certainly didn't seem to fit into my life. But as he was coming forward, I just knew that he was innocent. And at that moment, I knew that his death meant something real and was meant to change my life. But I just didn't know how it could have help. I remember raising my hand at the end and saying, you know what, I believe there's something here and I need help. I went forward and said a prayer and some strange guy came up and prayed with me. I don't even know who that was now. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I knew that I believed. And I knew that God was able. And I knew that Jesus was innocent. And I knew that I was a sinner. And I knew that it was time that I got honest with myself and confess my hypocrisy, my lies, my sin, and just be honest with God. I remember getting on the bus on the way home and thinking, I'm a Christian now, what shall I do? Don't chase any girls, go to church, buy a Bible and pray. That's all that I had in my mind. I went and told my family when I got home about me becoming a Christian, and one of my uncles was there. It'll never last. I'd be surprised if he gets past a month. 10 years later, I'm the godfather of that uncle's children. God is good and he's faithful. There have been times I haven't got a clue where to turn, but let me tell you this. If you'll be honest with God in your pain, and you'll keep confessing and crying out to him when it hurts most and when you feel most alone, I want you to know that he hears you and he'll come through and he'll guide you through it. I'll tell you this, I've never once changed my mind about trusting God, and I've seen him come through for me in so many ways, through so many prayers. I'll now realise how much my dad loves me. I understand why my mum worked so hard to protect her kids and to raise us the way that she had, in the best that she could see fit to do. I think sometimes it's easy to blame others and people. It's real easy to blame someone else, but it's real hard to take the mistakes that I've made, what you've done and what others have done, and to commit to making the best of it. One of the things that happened when I got saved is that I wasn't just forgiven of my mistakes. I didn't just find forgiveness for what I'd done wrong, for my fights, for my swearing, for my cursing, for lust, for all those things. It wasn't just about that for me. It was the fact that I actually was able to forgive others that unknowingly or sometimes deliberately had done things to hurt me, whether it be my family splitting or whether it be racism. And as I let go of all these things, I found that God gave me a joy and such a hope to live my life that changed who I am. I began to discover the power of forgiveness and love because of Jesus. See, I'm here to share this testimony because God's taken so many weights off my shoulders. He's seen me through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there've been a lot of all three in my life. And when I've been honest with God about these ugly moments, God has really helped me. I now understand why he made me work so hard. He wanted me to discover that it didn't matter how hard I work, I could never be enough on my own. I could never fulfill my own needs. I was looking for somebody else to help me. God has made me more thankful than ever for what I have. I'm probably more close, open, and honest with my parents now than what I've ever been. And it's not because they've been perfect, but because I know God. And because I know how he wants me to present myself before him. And I present myself the same way before my parents. Every day, God teaches me not to hide my shame, my failures and my pain, but to wear them and be honest with who I am. So there's a verse in Romans chapter 10 that I want to quote to you. Let me just read it. And it says that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God had raised him from the dead, then you will be saved. For with the heart one believes and is justified, and with the mouth one confesses as in saved. For the scripture says, everyone who believes in him will be not put to shame. God has saved me from shame. He saved me from hell. He saved me from guilt. He saved me from regret. I don't regret anything that I've been through in my life, even when I've made the mistakes, because God's used it to shape who I am. Our life is a learning curve. It's preparing us for the life to come. And one day we're all going to get to heaven by His grace. But you've got to trust Him now before it's too late. Don't allow bad experiences to drive you away. Let them make you hunger for Him more. So that's my testimony of how God has changed and saved my life. On the way, He's given me a family, a wonderful wife, beautiful daughter. But that's not all my testimony is. It's more than that. It's about God's working in me. Please do comment, like and subscribe to my channel to be updated with all the new videos.